start out, as we do with all of our meetings, by thanking our Sergeant at Arms for all the work that they do for us. And in particular today, we've got a lot of folks who would like to attend the committee. Michael Cavanis, Jim Hamilton, Mike Harris, Cherie Hedrick, Linda Matthews, Terry Barnhart, and John Enlow. They're around the room helping us out, and I appreciate it. Those, when we do open up for public comment, please respect the Sergeant of Arms when they give you kind of the time limits that we're going to have. And we are probably going to go ahead and get started. We have one bill on the agenda, but we're probably going to go ahead and start out. The Lieutenant Governor, we've reserved you have the first question, Senator Davis, on the list. I did that 15 minutes ago. So.
No, I do have an inquiry of the chair.
Senator Davis, yes, sir.
What would be the time length of this meeting today?
We will adjourn this meeting more than likely at noon today. So we'll hear from Lieutenant Governor, then we will hear from the bill sponsor, and then we have a whole bunch of folks who are interested in some public comments.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
And
thanks for reserving the first 30 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're limited.
And so we're honored to have Lieutenant Governor here to speak. So, Lieutenant Governor, welcome to the Committee on Education in the North Carolina Senate.
Oh, we got that. All right. Sorry, I need my other two eyes, and I got to fish them out. I'm sorry. All right, thank you for everybody, all the guests out there. Thank you for being here, and thank you all for allowing me to come and speak. I'm a firm believer that students should be able to receive an education that is free from indoctrination or undue pressure in any type way. This is a simple concept and one that should not be controversial. Regardless of your political affiliation, religious beliefs, or sexual orientation, all of us should want our children to have the opportunity to receive an education that teaches them how to think, not what to think, and gives them what they need in order to be successful. Earlier this year, my office started the Fairness and Accountability for Teachers and Students, or the FACTS Task Force, which is made up of various education professionals, some of which which joined me for a press conference earlier and joining me now here in this meeting. The goal of the task force was simple: to evaluate whether or not there is indoctrination occurring in the North Carolina public education system and to present our findings to the public. Today, we did just that, and since the task force began, we have received over 500 submissions. In addition to these submissions, the report includes materials from local education authorities, a case study from the Governor's School of North Carolina, and other social media and articles that are relevant. I want to highlight a few of these items here shortly, but before I do, I want to say something. Months ago, when we started this task force, people called us crazy, said this was not happening in our schools and that we had no evidence. I am now, after completing this task force, not only sure that it's happening, but 100% sure that it is happening. This is no longer a question of if this is occurring. It's a question of what are we going to do about it. I'm not going to go through the entire report right now. We don't have time. But there are some things that we found pervasive in the report that we found disturbing. There were 6 pervasive themes that we found while going through these submissions. One of the most disturbing is the fact that we have a fear of retaliation amongst our students, our parents, and most disturbingly, our teachers. Teachers are afraid to speak up against some of the things that they are being forced to learn and teach. That is not American and cannot exist, and it certainly shouldn't exist in any classroom or any education system. One Guilford County teacher in particular said, while there are many dedicated teachers who are committed to providing high quality, bias-free education to children, the leftist political activism in our school system is real. Many of us are too afraid to lose our careers and reputations by speaking up against it. Another group who seemed to be fearful to speak up were parents. They feared that by speaking up, their children would be retaliated against inside the classroom. They might be targeted by administration. Now, whether or not that would actually happen can be up for debate. But the fact that they feel that way is not, and again, cannot exist. One parent from Cumberland County sums it up when they said, "I don't want anyone knowing that I reached out to you," meaning our office, "and said anything about it, as I don't want my child to have any issues in school." Education works best when parents, teachers, school administrators, and local boards of education are all working together to provide the best possible education for students. When there's an adversarial relationship between those administering education, those that are participating, there cannot be an expectation for issues within the education system to be resolved. So what are some of the problems that educators and parents are seeing? Well, I will only provide just a handful of the many examples that we've seen. One parent from Wake County reported that her two daughters, elementary school age, were forced to read a book called George. This book is recommended for students in grades 4 to 7. It talks about a biological boy who wishes to be a girl. The book even talks about hormone therapy, and at one point, George even talks about cutting off his own male genitalia. In a school system that is failing to teach its children to read on a grade level, sitting fourth graders down talking to them about issues like this. It's way past time for us to start the process to do something about this issue, folks. Get back on track to education. A parent from Catawba County sent the task force pictures of a vocabulary assignment that their child brought home and had words that highlighted words to use in a sentence. One of those words was xenophobic. And the example sentence was, "It could be said that Donald Trump has xenophobia because of his fear of people from other countries other than the United States." A parent in Jackson County informed the task force of an assignment that sent the link that told that they were told to use the New York Times in order to and give their opinion on this New York Times article, using a newspaper that is blatantly partisan, and yeah, I said it, blatantly partisan, to teach children in school. In addition to the submissions, the report summary also includes excerpts from materials from the Governor's School of North Carolina. Some of the materials are privilege checklists for males, cisgenders, straights, and even Christians. Also shown to the students at the program was a graphic which has a flying gender unicorn. Students were then instructed to answer questions about their sexual identity and who they are attracted to. I'm not going through everything in this report and everything in the report that may apply to the bill that's going to be discussed here today. However, I want to share one final thought. Students, parents, and teachers all deserve an education system that is free from indoctrination and from intimidation. When we undertook this project, we wanted to answer a simple question: whether or not indoctrination was occurring in the North Carolina public education system. The simple answer to that, folks, is yes. We need to start a process to end it. And I believe that the bill that Senator Berger has introduced will do just that, along with this report as well. We need to shine a light on this. And we need to get back to the business of educating our children in this state and giving them what they need to succeed, not teaching them about our own personal opinions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. I would just, I appreciate the applause for Lieutenant Governor, but for the committee meetings, I'd appreciate it if we can kind of keep that to a minimum. I'm going to ask Senator Berger if he would like to come up. We have HB324 that's before the committee today. Just kind of a procedural reminder, this was a PCS that came before us a number of weeks ago. We had a lot of opportunity to discuss the bill. We had a lot of public input. So today, Senator Berger is going to present again, but this is the second time this committee has heard this particular bill, and we'll call it for a vote today. So, Senator Berger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I Again, as Senator Lee indicated, this bill was presented to the committee previously, and I'll just quickly go through the bill. The bill has a statement of intent. And that statement of intent makes it clear that the General Assembly intends that students, teachers, administrators, other school employees respect the dignity of others, acknowledge the rights of others to express differing opinions, and foster and defend intellectual honesty, freedom of inquiry and instruction, and freedom of speech and association, and that the public schools of North Carolina employ teaching methods and procedures to further that intent. The bill goes on toward that end to require that schools should not promote, and it defines promote as compelling students, teachers, administrators, or other school employees to affirm or profess beliefs in the concepts further listed in the bill. And I'll just give you a couple of the examples. Not to promote that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex, that an individual solely by virtue of his or her race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, that an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partially because of his or her race or sex. And it goes on to list 13 such items. The bill then goes forward to require the disclosure upon request of certain things that are taking place in our schools, and then further that it makes it clear that the bill itself does not apply to speech protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution, does not prohibit utilizing materials as part of a course of instruction, curriculum, instructional program, or supplemental instruction that includes the history of an ethnic group, as described in textbooks and instructional materials adopted in accordance with Part 3 of the Public Schools article, does not prohibit the impartial discussion of controversial aspects of history, does not prohibit the impartial instruction on historical oppression of a particular group of people based on race, ethnicity, class, nationality, religion, or geographic region, and does not prohibit historical documents relevant to subdivisions A through C of portions of the bill. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I encourage the committee's favorable consideration of the bill. I think that the issues that are occurring in our public schools are issues that have generated great concern amongst parents, amongst citizens, and amongst public officials. And while I do not believe that this bill will cure all of those concerns or may not necessarily even address all of those concerns, I believe this bill is a step, a positive step, in the right direction to, at a minimum, shine a light on some of the things that are happening in our public schools.
Thank you, Senator Berger. Members of the committee, do you have any questions or comments or discussion on the bill? Senator Davis, I think I had your name listed. I didn't know if that was from a previous committee, but.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and Senator Berger. I want to first start again on this bill, and I do greatly appreciate the manner in which we were able to discuss this topic at the last meeting. And Senator Berger, and to the Lieutenant Governor, I'm going to go as far as to say I commend you for standing on principles that you believe in here. What I would, however, ask as we move forward, I'm trying to really tackle this from a policy perspective. So my first question, and actually I do want to, for the record, Mr. Chair, last time you wouldn't allow me to come in the last text you, I think, asking for 10 seconds, because I wanted to be on record as saying this, and I want to be very clear to the Lieutenant Governor. You conveyed that an individual, a student in this state, may have been denied an ability to do a book report on you, and I think I told you personally, because the chair wouldn't allow me that 10 seconds, so I'm going to convey it today. If any student was denied an ability to do a book report on you simply because of your race or your political affiliation, that's absolutely wrong in this state. And I just want to make sure, we are clear on those things. So with that being said, the first question I have is the report from the task force was released today. And at least I have a summary of it. And my question, this may be for the Lieutenant Governor since it was the task force, is based on the 500 some odd submissions to the portal, how many of those actually violated Section 1 areas, lines 21 through, or criteria 1 through 13, subsection C, because what we're dealing with here is promotion. And we said that promotion was the definition we're using to define indoctrination. So I just want to be clear, of those 500 and some odd submissions submitted, how many of those actually were in violation of the promotion provision that is set out in this bill?
And I just want to go ahead and kind of get some ground rules. Since we have so many people that are going to speak, I'm going to ask if Senator Berger or Lieutenant Governor would like to answer the question. But today we really do need to make sure we kind of consider the bill. I realize that he talked about the report, and we can ask questions about the report, but I don't want to take the whole committee to just kind of vet the report only because we have a bill that we're moving and there are folks who want to speak. But obviously, either Senator Berger or Lieutenant Governor.
Really quick.
Lieutenant Governor.
This report and this bill are two separate entities. This report is simply a beginning point to prove to folks who were naysayers that said this is not happening. This report is intended to do that only. It is the first step in this. This bill is a completely different entity. And I think that right now we need to focus on this bill.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Follow up, Senator Davis.
While these may be separate, I do believe there's somewhat in communications a nexus that's being played in terms of the narrative. So my question is, I'm just maybe making a request of the Lieutenant Governor, if the task force is still intact and able to go through those submissions and possibly consider doing so. But the other question I had too was, there's really two parts to this bill. One is dealing with the compelling interests of promotion and indoctrination. The other I see as impartial or partial instruction. That's really partial instruction which creates the issue. So my other question would, on the same front, would be examples of where partial instruction actually has taken place.
If someone understood the question and wants to respond.
I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of don't understand the question.
I can. If Mr. Chair, I can be very plain spoken on this. There's in this bill two things that are at question, and not to understand this question is not to understand this bill. There's only two parts of the bill really that's at question. That's indoctrination and that's partial instruction, because the bill says there's to be impartial instruction.
Right.
So those are two things.
Right.
And my question is this simple. I'm trying to understand, as we're dealing with this bill, what are the examples of indoctrination and partial instruction in this state?
Senator Berger,
let me take a stab at it, okay? And I mentioned this in the press conference that we had. One of the examples that is in the report is an example of a parent who's writing about her daughter, and that her daughter opted to mute herself during most of the year of virtual instruction and watched silently as, quote, those that agree with the teacher's point of view got positive attention, end quote, while those who didn't were told, quote, to back down, and were actually met with what I would describe as a derisive comment that, quote, this is the teacher according to the parent, some of us are going to try to make it hard on the majority of us who want equality for all. Now, is that indoctrination? I don't know. Is it appropriate for a teacher to have said that in a classroom? I would hope we would all agree that that is not an appropriate thing for a teacher to have said. And so what the bill tries to do is as you indicated, draw a bit of a line that says you are not to promote certain things. And let me just throw something else out there that I've heard a lot about, and it is that this bill is going to have a chilling effect on teachers who want to do the right thing. I would suggest that not doing this bill will have a chilling effect on teachers, especially given the examples that we have seen in the report of teachers who have said that they're concerned about the training that they're having to go through. They're concerned that if they speak up during that training that there's going to be retribution. They're concerned that if they say something that is counter to what the administration or the trainers are trying to get them to move forward with, that they will be disciplined in some way. I would say failure to adopt this bill is, in essence, allowing that chilling effect to not only exist, but to grow.
Follow up. And there's some other senators that do have some questions.
Understand. And this is the final question I'll ask. I have a list, but I'll respect the wishes of the chair today. But my question is, and I'm really trying to get down to the core, because I actually may agree with you that
I hope you do.
Not only, here's what I'm saying. This is where we may agree. We may agree that comments and things are said. I mean, we're talking about when you put all this together, students, teachers. I mean, you're talking 2 million people plus when you include parents. And where I'm heading, we may agree on some things that may be inappropriate. But what I'm trying to come back to is, how is this bill actually, what's in here, actually addressing? You have 2 major areas. You have indoctrination. There's nothing whatsoever that's addressing the indoctrination, nothing whatsoever. And I still, to this day, have not yet encountered one teacher who's teaching students with the intent to compel them to overthrow the government. I mean, and I mentioned that at the last meeting, and I still interestingly have concerns with.
I'm sorry, but this is a Senate committee, and the senators are going to have the opportunity to ask questions on the bill. And when we have time, we will take comments from those in the audience. I realize these are passionate topics. The senators are passionate. Y'all are passionate. But we have a committee to run, so I'd really appreciate it if we'd follow the quorum of the committee. Senator Davis.
Mr. Chair, I'll get to the point here. I'm just trying to understand how this addresses, at the end of the day, what I see, there are a lot of issues some issues that may be taking place, and they almost appear to be administratively. How are administrators dealing with these issues? And I'm just trying to understand, how do we connect the dot with this bill?
Senator Berger.
At its core, I think the simplest answer to that is it provides vehicles for shining a light on what is taking place.
Senator Corbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to thank the Lieutenant Governor for including me on this task force. I was glad to serve along with Representative Willis, representing the General Assembly. This has been a wonderful process. I think a process, as Senator Berger said, that has shined the light on some things that are happening that we've determined are happening. Folks, we're a representative body. We and the House, we represent people in our district. That's what we do. And roughly 200,000 of people in North Carolina are in my Senate district. And a lot of these comments, Lieutenant Governor, as you know, came from my district. You read one of those in your comments today. So in representing our people, I think we have to represent those opinions that have come to us, those concerns that have come to us. I think this bill goes a long way to address that. I support the bill. Senator Berger, thank you for bringing that. And was glad to be a part of the task force. I know we've got a lot of conversation to go on, Mr. Chairman, but at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion for a favorable report.
Thank you, Senator Corbin. Any other members of the committee have questions or comments? Senator Shettery.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to say from the outset to underscore what Senator Davis said, that I believe that the examples that have been shared, both with regard to Lieutenant Governor Robinson or the example, Senator Berger, that you shared, I don't think any of us would agree that that's the proper way to instruct and teach our children. And as I've also made comments before in this committee, I think that there are other avenues to address those issues, but I think we should be very, very clear that the classroom should be an arena for all diverse perspectives to be shared by students. I do want to go back to Senator Davis's question again, and that is, Senator Berger, you openly have opined now you don't know whether the example that you have shared with us or not meets the definition of indoctrination. So I guess the question is, first, have the 500 and plus complaints that have been submitted, have they been verified? Was there follow-up by the task force? And the second question is, what examples in the task force report do you deem to be indoctrination?
Senator Berger.
So I am, the task force is the Lieutenant Governor's office process. I have not personally gone back and verified, and they will provide you with whatever information they have as to verification. I do think it's kind of puzzling to me that there are basically two criticisms of the bill. One is that there's going to be a chilling effect by adopting the bill, and the other is that the bill really doesn't affect anything. So I don't know how both of those things can be true. I think what the bill does, as I said, is it shines a light and gives tools to parents, citizens, school board members, and others to dig into what's happening in the classroom. And I think at a minimum, when you go through the report, there are some troubling things that are occurring in our classrooms, whether they rise to the level of promoting a particular thing that is that's addressed in the bill. I think we'll have to continue to look through the report and continue to receive reports. But I do think that the examples that you see in the report justify, support, and endorse the need for a bill like this to be passed.
Follow-up?
Follow-up. I appreciate that response, Senator Berger. Again, I would say to Senator Davis's point and the linkage between the report and this bill, a majority of this bill really focuses on the idea of prohibiting indoctrination, and yet we have not, there have been no examples that have shared with us about indoctrination. To be clear, and I don't think anybody disagrees with my opinion on this. I mean, I think there have been examples of where there is partial opinions. There's a lack of impartiality in the classroom. There may be book assignments that may be deemed inappropriate, but there are avenues to address those issues, including school board policies where parents can object or even have the child not read the book, for example. Just as a follow-up, I'm curious, given the fact that the information has not been verified in the report, as to if a child has an objection or a parent has an objection to a book. There were a number of books that were cited in this report. Isn't it true that a parent, and I think there's an example that is cited in this report, a parent can ask for that book, for the child not to read the book, and can object to it, and the teacher can find an accommodation if the book is deemed to be offensive, as the example that has been shared with Lieutenant Governor Robinson?
Just to address one quick thing, you said something about verification. I think the report talks about how they verified submissions in the report. You mentioned it was unverified, so I would just encourage you to kind of take a look at the process they utilized. Senator Berger, if you want to respond to the question.
Senator Chaudhry, with the qualification that Senator Lee offered as to whether or not the report's verified, I would agree with your statement that there are avenues out there, and this bill would provide an additional avenue, which I think is something that would be helpful to parents, helpful to citizens, and helpful to folks that work in school systems.
One last follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Follow-up.
Senator Berger, again, this is maybe a question as it relates to the task force, but again, it's tied to the bill. I won't ask that question, but let me make a statement. The examples that are in the task force actually cite specific teachers, both public school teachers and private school teachers, and it concerns me that whether these reports are verified or not, that essentially shining a light on how the teachers are teaching this material, whether it's verified or not, can amount to disruption in the classroom, and in some ways I think could be characterized as a witch hunt on our public school teachers and those teachers in the classroom. I will say this, that I think that the objections that have been discussed in the task force and that have been cited by Lieutenant Governor Robinson and Senator Berger, that we have already a number of existing avenues for parents to address those concerns, and I think it's important that we remember them. As I've stated before in this committee, if there is someone who is compelled, if there's compelled speech or indoctrination, that is both a federal constitutional violation and a state constitutional violation. If there are concerns about a book that is being taught that is inappropriate, almost all school board policies allow for the parent to object for them. If there are concerns about the way the teacher is teaching, the State Board of Education has adopted a professional code of conduct in which a teacher must abide by that. And so my point being is, number one, we don't see, or we still haven't had any examples of indoctrination that have been cited by the task force. And second, we have these, we have avenues that exist for us to address those issues. Last thing I will say is that, this week marks the first week of our kids going back to school, and I feel that we should be spending time this week honoring our children. Instead, we're spending time debating a Fox News-driven issue that's more about fear-mongering and it's turned into a fishing expedition of our public school teachers. This task force, I should point out, did so without public notice meetings or any public meetings that were that abided by open meeting laws. And so, Lieutenant Governor Robinson, I think if this task force continues, I hope that you will take input and suggestions from those of us as far as trying to find a solution that can find some common ground. Thank you.
We didn't hide in the dark and do this task force thing, and we didn't ask to do it. The parents, teachers, and students of North Carolina demanded it. And to sit here and call it a Fox News-driven issue, when I have stood with teachers who have cried because they feel like their jobs and livelihoods and professions have been threatened, for you to call it that is an insult, an absolute insult. And you know where my office is, and you know that this task force is going on. When did you contact me? Please don't turn this into some partisan issue.
Mr. Chairman, I respond.
Senator Chaudhry and Lieutenant Governor, I appreciate the passion that we have on this issue. I appreciate y'all to address the chair. Senator Lazzara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I completely disagree with my colleagues this morning because the examples that were given are clear indicators of indoctrination. Indoctrinate. To imbue with a usually partisan or sectarian opinion, point of view, or principle. And those are the exact examples that were given today. It's as clear as daylight. And I fully support this bill, along with thousands of parents who have contacted us with numerous examples. We don't need any more examples. The examples that were given today are clear indicators of indoctrination based on a definition. And for that matter, I fully support the bill, and I thank the sponsors for the hard work that they've put into this.
Thank you, Senator Lazzara. Unless there are any other questions or comments, we're going to go to the audience. There's only one fair way to do this, ladies and gentlemen, There were folks that were here 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes early. I'm going to go down the list and just call on the list, the first one that's on the list. We're going to go through as many as possible. If we're going to limit 2 minutes for comments. If you can make your comments in less than 2 minutes, I think the rest of the people on the list would appreciate that. But we'll start with Ashley Sechel, a Wake County parent.
Good morning. I am here in support of...
If you'll just let us know your name. I know I just said it. But your name and where you came from.
Ashley Sechel, Wake County. Good morning. I'm here in support of HB324. I want to thank the legislators and the Lieutenant Governor for addressing this important issue. Many of the children in North Carolina suffered academically this past year due to the pandemic. They are already heading into the classrooms behind. The negative social and mental impacts are immeasurable. This healthcare issue has not gone away. They are still forced to wear masks all day, which cannot help with learning. Did you know that only 34% of 12 to 17-year-olds in North Carolina are vaccinated? The other 66% of parents and children continuously feel the pressures and threats of discrimination from our government. What does this have to do with HB 324? It relates because many children are coming to school already disadvantaged. In addition, they may be treated differently based on their vaccination, like longer quarantine times. In Wake County, there's no virtual learning if you're quarantined. Do you really think it is a good idea to have these kids come back to school after all they've been through, and instead of being taught reading, writing, and math, they're taught political ideologies and theories? Do you really think this approach is going to help the children that are already struggling? This bill should not be a partisan issue. This bill is a child issue. HB 324 is the first step in stopping the divisiveness and the discrimination that permeates these schools. It is not the time to bring your political theatrics. It is time that legislators in this General Assembly pass legislation to help protect the innocent children from all discrimination, which includes their education.
Jim Walsh, if you'll take the podium, restate your name and let us know where you're from, and if you represent someone.
Good morning. My name's Jim Walsh. I'm Wake County. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for considering this bill, and I would further like to thank all the input that was given to us to hear today. Thank you for standing up to the public school system and their efforts to put in place a theory, critical race theory. Let's talk about definitions. I love what you did earlier. Definition of history. The study of past events, particularly and human affairs. The whole series of past events connected with someone or something. History is not pretty, and sometimes it's hard to swallow and totally understand, taking into consideration our lifestyle today. However, bad or good, there is one thing that we need to remember, and that is history has a bad habit of repeating itself. So how does it not? By reliving the truth and telling the truth about history. The context of the event. During that time, the good, the bad, the ugly. Realizing that and understanding and being able to discuss it. Let's talk about CRT. CRT was a theory in 1989. It was based off of another theory in 1960. That theory was critical legal theories. And oh, by the way, that theory never flew. Why? It was trying to defame our legal system. And in doing so, it was not able to prove that those disingenuine by the bills were being harmed.
Linda Harper, I believe, is next. on the list. Ms. Harper, restate your name and where you're from.
Linda Harper from Wayne County. I taught in the public schools for 35 years and I subbed for 10. And I am totally against the critical race theory. And I can give you an example. Now, I am a Christian. And of course, you know, we can't talk about God in the public schools. But one day I went to sub, and on the top of the books that I was supposed to read to the class, there was this 2 children on a camel with turbans, and they were going to Saudi Arabia to get the wisdom of the caliphate. Now, I don't know if you know much about children learning, but where do children get their wisdom? And that's the thing you want to remember, that children, we believe as a Christian, that children get their wisdom from God. And therefore, I had a problem with teaching that to those children, that they were going to Saudi Arabia to get their wisdom from the caliphate. So therefore, I am supporting the bill that says we're prohibited from teaching all these other things. But then what about God? So we need to include that, because Marx's theory, or critical race theory, does not have a moral or spiritual component in it. It's also an equity-based form of government, which would mean the end not only of private property, but also of individual rights, equality under the law, federalism, the freedom of speech. These would be replaced by race-based redistribution of wealth and group-based rights, active discrimination, and powerful bureaucratic authority. This government would not have, as I said, a spiritual or moral component.
Thank you. And I apologize if I don't pronounce your name. I think it's Natalie Henderson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalia Androsova. I am a Wake County resident, moved from Russia 22 years ago here, and happy to help to call North Carolina my home. I am also a parent. My daughter is sophomore in high school. Friday, last week, I pulled her out from Wake County public school system and opened my own homeschool academy. I have a list of reasons why I did that, but I will talk about only one today. I grew up in the Soviet Union, and I had experienced firsthand indoctrination and communist propaganda. It was everywhere, including school curriculum, mostly language arts and social studies. Without noticing it, I became a product of this propaganda, truly believing that Communist Party wants only good things for us people. And I needed to work hard to help them out. So, to bring bright future called communism. I believed my teachers because I loved them and I trusted them. And apparently they will also brainwash to teach us kids to love Communist Party and follow the instructions and their directions. My parents did not pay any attention to that because they've been busy working hard. I see the same pattern here in our public school. Marxist ideology called critical race theory is embedded in the curriculum and thought. As an aware parent, I cannot allow my child to absorb any of that ideology because it destroys dignity of human being. You, as a legislative body, have a power to help our children to feel loved and accepted, creating the atmosphere in the classroom where kids feel free to express their own opinion. You, as a legislative body, have an ability to make our schools free of this Marxist ideology called critical race theory that brings division and hate in the classrooms. You, as a legislative body, have an obligation to your constituency to do the right thing. I am encouraging you to support this bill.
Thank you very much. We have to give some other folks time to speak, but thank you very much for your comments. Carl Landgren.
Carl Landgren, Wayne County, father of 5, 2 of whom are in public schools, sophomore and senior. And hard to really follow Natalia. God bless you. But yes, Marxism or any of its other, shall we say, variants has never helped one soul on this planet. Never. It is antithetical to everything that has made America a once great and soon to be again great nation. To have children being taught during their susceptible, impressionable years when they're vulnerable to ideas, it's okay to teach other religions or anti-religious sentiments and philosophies, but not to talk about our founders' beliefs. Good heavens. Propaganda is just a fancy word for lies, either lying by omission or outright lies. CRT, which has been alluded to, is only part of that. It inbreeds fear, resentment, suspicion, envy, needless guilt, and other dangerous and destructive things to our children that must not be allowed. I support 324 as a good step in the right direction and hope that we can build upon its foundation to move forward and further improve real education, including true American history, and, for example, math teachers teaching math, science teachers teaching true, real science and verifiable science. But please pass this bill.
Lana Witt. If you'll restate your name and where you're from.
Lana Witt, Wake County resident, U.S. citizen, wife, mom, and daughter. Having lived and served Chinese English educators in People's Republic of China beginning in 2001, I'm aware of the long-term effects from training communities and generations of people of all ages to be skeptical of family members, friends, and neighbors through free speech and its lack of. My husband, born into the Cultural Revolution in China in 1968, shares stories of limited speech and propaganda as a student that limited his free and critical thinking. He came to the U.S. in the late 90s, experienced opportunities to truly inquire and grow in his opportunity to self-govern. He's been here for the majority of his life since, becoming a naturalized citizen just a few years ago. Thank you, President Pro Tem Berger, Chairman Lee, and committee members for opening the floor for public comment. Word is that there's pressure to avoid potential vetoes of our governor by delaying or tabling solid legislation like this, which faithfully represents North Carolinians' concerns, from inside the classroom to the homes where our students return after entrusting our children to these public institutions. We continue to watch for team players. If our honorable governor seeks sole authority, we're watching. When legislators of our NCGA collaborate to push legislation, citizen advocates see and note the team players. Thank you, Senate Education Committee, for your time and continued attention to education policy and curriculum transparency. Our growing young people need you. So we appreciate and watch for your faithful, collaborative work, Senator Chad Hurry and fellow Senate Education Committee members.
Thank you. Katie Smith.
Hello, Katie Smith. 2 months I've lived in North Carolina. And if you watch Fox News, you've all heard about Loudoun County, Virginia. And that's the county that I lived in that's been implementing CRT. And I've witnessed the damage it's done to my children. My son over here is 5 years old. I have a 9-year-old who's in 3rd grade. I'm 40 years old and I'm divorced. And under CRT, I am oppressed. Do I feel oppressed? No. Under CRT, my white son is privileged. He will be less advantaged to get a job despite exceeding expectations in his education. These Principals are 100% political, and I can tell you that because I'm a government contractor for IT, and I support the White House. I have intimate information and knowledge, and I may lose my job for saying this, but it's worth it. I know this is 100% driven by President Biden's administration. None of that should creep into the public school. And I moved to this state because it wasn't here. And I've lived here 2 months. And you're now thinking about accepting this. It's just horrible. Equality versus equity. Do you think anyone understands what the difference in those definitions mean? They're very different. We have come a long way with equality. Equity is bringing down the people that deserve and have reached the highest standards of learning in order to bring up minorities of any individual color, race, religion, just to create statistics that meet the administration's objective, which is 100% wrong. And I will move from this state if you accept CRT in public schools.
Julie Page. If you'll restate your name and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Julie Page, Wake County parent. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak to you. My name is Julie Page, and I'm the mother of 2 elementary-age boys in the North Carolina public school system. When the riot started last year, my oldest son asked me what racism was. I told him that's when some people don't like other people just because they look differently. He asked why. Why would people do that? I told him I don't know why. I told him that all people should be treated the same, with kindness and respect, no matter what they look like. He said, I like everyone. I don't care what they look like. I only care if they're nice to me or not. Before the riots began, my sweet child never judged anyone by the color of their skin. Why would he? Now he starts to see people differently. My kids are taught that they are superior to other races. They are bad based on their skin tone. Other children are taught that they are inferior and oppressed. This is very wrong. The division amongst children needs to end now. We should be teaching fairness, kindness, responsibility, compassion, equality, honesty, and integrity. None of those things have anything to do with skin color. Instead, they have everything to do with personal character. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to hear one more person because we're running out of time. But the one thing I will encourage you to do is to reach out to senators to speak to them that are on this committee who you would like to speak to. Respectfully, they're thoughtful folks and would love to hear from you and what your experiences are. One more. The last person we have is Clayton Dillard.
Good morning, everybody. Senator Berger, thank you. My name is Clayton Dillard, Wake County resident. I'm father of 7 wonderful children. I'm here to speak to you regarding a dangerous trend in the United States. There are those in our country who seek to undermine and destroy the very fabric of freedom and liberty that makes America great and exceptional among all other nations in the history of the world. And I'm referring to the threat and the cancer that is Marxism. What children are being taught today in schools by radical Marxist educators and administrators is sickening. It is filth. It is full of lies. Critical race theory and social emotional learning are an affront to everything our country is built on and stands for. To teach children that they are inherently racist because of the color of their skin is wrong. To teach children that they are guilty of something that happened in our nation's history over 150 years ago is wrong. The evildoers who are promoting this agenda are throwing salt in old wounds in order to divide us, to sow the seeds of mistrust, and to pit American children against each other. And make no mistake, it will destroy our country if we do not stop it now. Consider the words of our forefathers who risked everything for the freedom that you and I must fight to retain now. We hold these truths to be as self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. God-given rights. equality, and freedom for all people. These set America apart from all the nations. It is the reason so many millions immigrate here annually. We are the land of freedom unless you are white, conservative, Christian. If radical leftist groups like BLM would like to, they will intimidate you, and the very schools that we fund attack our children with shame and filthy indoctrination tactics. If you're white, conservative, and Christian, you're constantly reminded of the Marxist left, how the Marxist leftists label you. And we got to stop it. Thank you, sir. Support you. Appreciate it.
Senator Corbin made a motion for a favorable report to the PCS, unfavorable to the original bill, with a re-referral to Rules and Operations of the Senate. Thank you, Senator Corbin. Any further discussion on the bill? All in favor of Senator Corbin's motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We are now adjourned.